It's 7 o'clock. You know who it is, your girl, and another of your girl happiness. Hi guys, welcome to Bayways. As usual, it's your 7 p.m. where you should be every day. If you have friends who are not on this today, you better get them on this. I've been waiting for so long for this Tuesday. Anyways, I'm Taha Zumanagindi, and today I am with happiness. I don't know where our boys are, but yeah, it's women power today. It's women power. Hello, happiness. How are you doing?
Hi, Madam Host. I'm good. I'm also surprised that our boys are not here today because we'll be talking to them. But I really, so
They went away.
if they are watching, please come, guys. We want you here.
We want them here, and we have our guests. But before we get to that, guys, when I say I've been waiting for this day, I mean I've been literally waiting on this day. This is the day where I get to call men out, of course. But today's topic will be patriarchy, toxic masculinity, and misogyny. Before we get to that, we have to explain what we are going to talk about. So basically, when we say patriarchy, you already know what we are on, because patriarchy and toxic masculinity and misogyny go hand in hand with men are trash. So that today we are there on men are trash. But then we don't exactly know what this words mean. We just cover them under the umbrella of men are trash, men hate women. But what exactly is that? Um, Obviously we have guests because you never roll alone. We have our guests. They'll introduce themselves. For now, let me just tell you what we'll be talking about so that when you guys engage, you know what we are all about. Let's start by patriarchy. In simple terms, patriarchy is man is the head of the house. Just putting it like that, like man is the head of the house and the woman is the neck. Misogyny, will mask it with men hate women. And then toxic masculinity is just men being toxic. I don't know. We have guests who are going to go deeper into details with us. We have our beautiful lady here, and we have another guest of ours, Mr. Ndogoza. Can you guys please introduce yourself? Miss Balo, you can go first.
Okay. Hi, guys. Again, my name is Carla Valoi, and I'm happy to be back again to talk about my favorite topic, patriarchy. Yeah.
We have Carola. We had Carola last week, if you remember, when we were on about mental health issues. Carola has a BSc, and Carola is my favorite girl because she has an honors, but she says, "Oh, I just have an honors." So this is I just have an honors, Carola. Hello, Mr. Douglas. You can unmute your mic so that you can talk to us.
But ladies are going first because I see happiness. She's here, but for the sake of time, my name is Ndogozo. I can't pronounce my surname due to obvious reasons, but how you pronounce it is still okay as long as you don't swear. I don't know. I'm humbled to be here. I still don't know what did I say for me to get invited to this general amazing topic. But I'm here. The most beautiful thing is I'm not here as an activist. I'm here as a person who actually understands human behavior, who understands the impact of today's topic and how it affects people's productivity and efficiency and growth in life. So I was stunned, I'm shocked, I'm honored by the invitation. I will stop there.
So you are not here as an activist. And I like that you are the only man here. So we're gonna be you. No, I'm joking. But then thank you guys for availing yourselves. As I've already explained, we'll be talking about patriarchy. I think another word that's left out is feminism, because you cannot address a patriarchy and toxic masculinity and misogyny without involving feminism in it. Otherwise, will just be empowering the patriarchy. So, getting deeper into detail, what exactly is patriarchy? Like, how best can you explain patriarchy?
Well, I think you explained it very well, Jorge. It's just men being the head of the house. They're given so much power to rule and reign. And that's just it. It's a system that was created long time ago to empower men. Basically, that's just it.
Carola?
So for me, the best way I can explain patriarchy is it functions as a system of oppression, basically, because it tends to favor a certain group of people while excluding a certain group of people. And the group that's favored is men, while a complete exclusion of a woman is also involved. So it's kind of a system of oppression, basically.
I agree with you. Mr. Ndogozo, do you have any different explanation?
I won't go down on the history, but remember, is a hierarchical type of system that says who's on top and who is on the bottom and who has access to that, and predominantly within the male context. And it's kind of difficult for people to unlearn this because of it's there in each and every typical institution. When I say typical institution, you find it in religion, you find it in business, you find it everywhere. So the hierarchy that says men should be in higher position, they are the heads, they are everything. That's what it is defined as in most cases. So the hierarchy we find within the space that totally says divide people and actually demean people to say, just because of your different gender, you're least important. It's painful. You find that a woman who bear 5 kids, as long as they're girls, within the Black community, they say you're not the man enough. You need to have a son to continue the lineage. Those are typical patriarchy practices which are there, have been there ages ago, because of we were born into a system that endorses such. It's kind of painful to say this, but we are in a space whereby we fully embrace it. And the most painful things, or painful thing I realized is religion is one of the key role player of patriarchy. I'll stop there.
Love what you said, that religion is where patriarchy is most concentrated in. Like my favorite part of patriarchy is the part where if me and Dogozo come from the same household and our father has like 10 cows, all of the cows are gonna go to Dogozo because unfortunately someone back in the days decided that women cannot handle power. My favorite other part of patriarchy is when men get angry that the system favors them, but when they have to work in favor of it, they get mad. Happiness last session, she mentioned for men have to provide. And that's how we were born into men have to provide kind of a society, but then they get mad. And what happens when men get mad? That's when toxic masculinity and misogyny come into play, right? So we'll come back to explaining patriarchy and getting deeper into it. I just want us to touch on the to just get our audience to understand the topic much better. We'll now explain toxic masculinity. To me, toxic masculinity is my favorite one. My favorite one is men not expressing their emotions if it's not pride. Like, yeah, nada. And that's the only emotion that they can express. How best can you guys explain toxic masculinity?
Well, before I continue with my answer, I should applaud your sarcasm right there, Tahatso. Yeah, you got it, girl. Anyways, toxic masculinity, I'll describe it as people's way of perceiving manliness that is actually toxic to the society. I don't know if I should go further to explain, or
You can go further. You can go further.
Are we not gonna go deeper as we're having the conversation? I thought we're just sharpening with the introduction and then we're gonna come back.
Oh yeah, okay. You can give Carola the mic.
You have the mic.
Okay, so for me, the best way I can explain toxic masculinity is the removal of certain aspects of humanity in order to favor traits that align with a certain system that's been put into place. So kind of what Happiness has said, basically, it's removing certain aspects that are very important in humanity so that we can push a narrative that we create in our heads or in the society that we live in, basically. So the toxicity comes from having removed some parts that play an important role in being a human, and then leaving others that serve more of a systematic function. Yeah. So yeah.
Very much detailed. Ntokozo, do you have anything to add?
It's an expression of emotional inferiority, expressed in such a case that people actually are protecting themselves from expressing how they're feeling, and then they over exaggerated with pride and masculinity to such a degree that it demeans the other person at the receiving end.
One other favorite thing I love, and that's left out in most conversations about toxic masculinity, is that me as a girl can have toxic masculinity because I have the feminine side and then I have the masculine side. So there are women that are projecting a toxic masculinity, but we don't really get to talk about it because we've associated so much of masculinity to just male as a gender and not to masculinity being a part of our life balance, if that makes sense. Happiness, you wanted to go deeper. Now we're gonna go deeper. So before I take men, because guys, I all the time I attack men. I think you can also call me a misogynist because I kind of like don't like men. But then how best can you describe misogyny? Because we love the word Shem.
It's just people's hatred towards women, basically. I don't know if there's any better way to describe it. They hate us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Misogyny is literally the art form of just despising women for existing, basically. Mm-hmm. So I really do agree.
Do they have a different way of describing misogyny other than men hate women?
It's the same thing as it's not about only men hating women. It's whoever actually hates women. The reason why I'm saying this, I've experienced misogyny between women themselves. Mm-hmm. To such a degree that they'll tell you, look, this is a very typical example. You find a woman in an abusive relationship, and a woman will say, as advising her, Begazela, my sister. Mm. That's one sign of that, look, you hate me that much, you're saying to me, let me stay in a toxic relationship. So it's not only based on how much men hate women, but let's look at other women hating on each other as well, because of this is where it stems from, because of most of the time men play along with the hatred you guys have as women to each other. And it's one of the key things that we need to look at. It. What is the source of misogyny? And that goes hand in hand with the fact that is it totally impractical for only men to hate women, but what makes women to hate other women, that men will make it a leverage to say, you guys as women hate each other.
Yep. Tahadzo. You
As
know,
that's
I
I
just
take no.
disappeared right now. Tahadzo.
I'm
There's,
so
there's just something here that Dogozo said, ne? Every time when the word popped up, ne, I just said men hate us. Well, I never looked at it in that angle. It's also within us. But come to think of it, if you go to like a doctor or a gynae, which gender do you prefer as a woman? Let's be honest.
I'd rather be checked out by a man. Besides the guy that couldn't tell anything. It goes from Bona. I'd rather get my service from a man than a woman. I can tell you get to a woman, you're all smiley, you get to happiness, you get to Carola, and one of them will just look at you like already you don't want to participate. It's actually deeper with us women because we often I can say like we mask it with just some weird stuff. Do you understand? Like we hate each other with no valid reasons. I would just hate Carola for Carola has glasses and mine are broken. And oh no, I don't like her. Why don't you like Carola? No, I just don't like her. Do you understand? Like with women, it's much deeper, but it is not addressed. You know, Mario and Dogozo came for us. They say we were not fighting. We just wanted to explain. Now, another thing that raises a lot of eyebrows is feminism. Guys, what exactly is feminism? Because people think when we say feminism, we are just all women, and then we don't at all care about men. But then, what is feminism exactly?
I'm sure you're looking at me right now. Well,
I am.
I'm passing the mic to Carola because she takes pride. She's a feminist, so she should describe it. She should tell us.
All right. So for me, feminism at its core, it's fighting for economic, social, and political equality. At the basis of it all, it's just trying to get to a point where everyone is viewed as human and therefore is treated as such. Just removing more of the biological or natural aspects of humanity and focusing more on a person's ability and capability. So for me as a feminist, I'm fighting for people to be able to exist basically as humans, far beyond, well, you're a man and you're a woman, you should do this or that. So removing of gender roles, all of that, that's what feminism is for me.
Should we get to Ndogozo first or Happiness? You want to say something?
Yes, I want to ask Carola a question. You know, there's a continuous debate about equality and equity. You know, so a feminist is somebody who's fighting for equality. Is it practical? Because I don't think we can ever reach that state. We are not equal. Yeah, maybe as humans we are, but women should have a higher power in my perspective. Yeah,
Yes, matriarchy.
So I think that. Oh, all right. Come in.
So yeah, like you said, you can't be
equal.
equal. Oh, is someone speaking?
You may. Or must I continue? Oh, I was saying feminism to me, it's typically a scam. Let me be honest with everyone. It's a scam. And the reason why I say feminism is a scam is it's like BEE. When Black people are only empowered, let's just do BEE and just appoint one person in this company and we say you'll be compliant. It's the same thing about feminism. You can fight as far as you can, but equality is what people will never get. Yes, we can fight for equity. The most annoying thing about me is I read a lot, and I was reading about, I got this book about inequality in South Africa, and it shows you how we'll never catch up as Black people within South Africa as a whole. But let's come to what you're saying now, is the systematic history we have within our educational system itself, it plays a role. You're expecting specific women to fight for a specific position in life, but you don't study it in primary school. You want to empower a girl post the matric or post the college studies and say, look, there's something called feminism. You can be empowered. You can do better. It's already late because of the days where you're supposed to learn most of the stuff. That phase has passed already. Yes, you are fighting a battle without knowing the source of the problem where it is. And this goes back to the fact that at the end of the day, certain institutions, including marriage, is one of the key roles that will make you feel that feminism is a scam because of what have all the feminist activists have achieved. You'll find that we find ourselves in a situation whereby we suffer from the first syndrome, whereby you're the first Black person to do this, or the first woman to get this, you're the first woman to do that. And it ends there. And we say, yes, we have fought, it's better than yesterday. It can't be, because of if from grade 1 until grade 9, we have the same access to the same subject. What changes later on? Because it's the same educational system, the same content, meaning that the same opportunity of access. So it's not about the educational system, it's what we are taught back at home, that woman only nature. And when you ask your mom, why is the case? It's like that. We've been raised by a society that says, do this. When you ask why, they're going to say, it is like that. So without giving you a valid reason. So we can fight, but remember the problem, you're fighting the gender before you stand and fight with a person. I remember in my life, late in my life, when I said to my mom, I love Christianity, I love God, I love Jesus. Anyhow, I decided to become a humanist. And when my mom asked me why, I said, I have to believe in a person first, that before believing in any other things that they believe in. So for me to have faith in Carola must do something that is attractive, that is appealing to me before I put the label. Because the dangers of labels is that each and every time they say you're a feminist, you're an activist, you're what, they're actually boxing you to a point whereby they're going to say, okay, fine. If Carola says she's an activist, we don't listen to what she's saying because she's always fighting. Those are the dangers of labels. So we need to find a way whereby we are not pushed by labels, but say, okay, fine, what is the problem? The problem is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how can you solve it as human beings before we assign gender roles in each and everything that we do in life? So for me, feminism is a scam. It's just one of those things that, okay, we have patriarchy. What can we do just in case to balance it out? And we like, there's feminism. Yes, let's run with it. Let's give it other titles. Let's give it subtitles. And to a point where there are others who even hate men. But at the end of the day, you're not addressing the inequality or the inequality. You're just trying to make people feel comfortable that there is some term that we can give it to you to make you feel good. But the actual work is not actually done. That's my opinion.
Carola, do you want to come in?
Yeah. A lot was said. Okay. And honestly, like I'm hearing what he's saying, ne? But my thing is, if you then come and say, well, what has feminism done? Those first would have never happened if there weren't women who actually went and fought for their firsts. Because there were men who said, no, you're not getting anything. And they said, yes, we were. So feminism has given us those first. And it's not a feminist fault that we are still struggling. We are still in a place where I have to be the first woman to do something, or someone has to be the first black person to do something. It's not my fault. It's me trying to fight off a system that was built into it. Personally, I'm a Black feminist. I don't believe in white feminism. So my feminism stems from Black culture, Black spirituality, and so on and so forth. So my fight is mostly around our Black traditions, our Black culture, how we raise our young boys and girls, and fighting to get to a place where, again, we're seen as humans before we are men and women. And that is where the equality comes from. Equality doesn't come from, well, you can give birth and you can do. The biology must always be removed from a person before we put them in one space or the other. We remove the biology and we see you as a person, and we see what you're capable of doing as that person. And that's what Black feminism really is. It's not a scam, because if it was a scam, then we wouldn't have the first that we have. We wouldn't have women who are, I wouldn't even be able to learn. Are you aware? Like, I wouldn't, English? No. I was not allowed to speak before those women came in with the first. Do you understand? Feminism, we can, like, I have had so many men tell me that, well, you shouldn't be a feminist because it's about white people, and you should be a womanist, or, you know, feminism doesn't work. It never did, or I'm a man hater or whatever. But without me leaning into feminism, I would have never known about patriarchy. I would have never been able to speak to my family right now, and encourage them to do things that they thought they couldn't do because they were women, because of the society that we were raised into. I don't know if I'm making sense.
You are actually making sense. I'm agreeing with Ndogozo on a stating level that feminism is a scam. They say it as a scam because they've labeled feminism as an angry woman, which comes from patriarchy itself. Because the moment you come onto a stage and say, I'm Tafatso Managedi and I'm a feminist, already you are an angry woman. Whether you're smiling, whether you're literally popping love, whatever, from your ears, from your eyes, you are labeled as an angry woman, because patriarchy has taught us that women cannot have a say. So that's why feminism seems like a scam.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, yes.
Who made it a scam? Who labeled you a woman hater? Who did that?
Men. The men.
Exactly. Because if we look at the history of feminism, at every single corner, when a woman wanted to do something, there were always men who were bashing her and putting her down for doing it. You cannot scam. If feminism is doing this and it has achieved this, and then another person comes and says, well, it doesn't count. It doesn't make it not count. It just means for those people, it doesn't count. And the reason why that is done is so as to bring down the idea or the fight. If I say feminists are men haters, I'm reducing the work that they're able to do. It doesn't mean feminism doesn't work. It just means it's a tactic to make it seem as though every single feminist that exists out here only has the intention to hate men, so that the system doesn't work, so that the people aren't heard or seen. It's not a scam. The people who make it seem as if it's a scam are trying to achieve something, and they actually are. For the fact that at this moment in time we're saying, well, feminism is a scam, is that it's working. Their intention is for us to not be heard, and therefore we aren't. I don't know if I'm making sense.
And another thing, I also agree with Ndogozo when he says we live in a society where we do not know the sources per se. When you ask, it is what it is. So that's why we struggle to see the effects of feminism into this. And I don't know if men know that they can be feminists as well as women can have toxic masculinity. I also love Dogozo for saying first he has to believe in a person. Like I've took some time I love God, I love Christianity, I love spirituality. So I've taken time to dive deeper into it. I've come to realize that we have to balance. I must have the masculinity and the feminism, femininity, whatever. And that's where the balance comes in. That's where the yin and the yang comes in. So basically, I'm also a man and I'm also a woman. But before all of those genders, I am a person deserving of a person deserving to be seen, a person deserving to be heard, a person deserving of equal opportunities as any other person. Do you understand? Like, I don't think Togoso understands that without feminism, wouldn't even be in this space talking talking about this. So feminism really came a long way. So, well, we do have some few rotten potatoes, but they don't really spoil the whole bag, guys. Like, have some faith in us. Now, back to Patriachy. How best can we dismantle patriarchy, like the hierarchy? How did the hierarchy come about? Why were men placed at the top and we at the bottom?
Am I supposed to answer that?
Go first.
I'm going to pinpoint something that I'm not supposed to, but I'm going to do that. Christianity is the reason why there's patriarchy. Genesis, when God created Adam, he gave Adam dominion over to rule and provide. And that's where it goes. And God said this is the first person who came up with hierarchy, to say it's him, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that's how it went within the Bible. You find that just because of Sarah couldn't bear kids, someone else had to. If you look at David, for example, David went to an extent of killing a person just to sleep with the person's wife. God allowed that. It fed into that. You look at Solomon having 600 wives and how many concubines, and all of them will all go back to say, look, there is this man we need to be under and all that. And the most interesting thing at the same time, which is so interesting that people don't get it, it says a man shall leave his home and cling to his wife. That's what people misses. In the current generation, women leave their home and cling into this. So the moment you miss certain principles you find in Christianity is the more hierarchy comes into play. You find that even today, fast forward in today's churches, if the woman is the pastor, they say Mamfundis. They'll never say that is the pastor, even though she's the one who's called. And it is because of, according to them, a woman is not clean enough to be the head of the church. This is one of the examples. So one of the things that I can say is one of the greatest contributing factors, because certain principle you find in patriarchy is what we find in Christianity, is what we find in the institution of marriage. Because of, if you look at the institution of marriage itself, how toxic it is to a certain degree, it's good. People should get married. Hallelujah. Amen. But if you look at it in a bigger landscape, it deduces a woman's identity into a man's identity alone. And when the Bible says the two shall become one, and the one becomes the one who's the head. So what happened to the woman along the way? So we need to always be careful of how much certain places play in crucial role. Other key factor that plays a very crucial role is, let's look at the workforce. Before World War I and World War II, women were not openly working everywhere in any way. You get my point? And it literally means people who started the workforce, the inequality we have in the professional world is because of men have been running the industry itself. You're talking about 400, 500 years ahead of women joining the workforce. So already people who are running the institution of business, it's men. So they dictate the rules. They will tell you that this is what is happening and this is how things actually run. And if you look at such institution, they have deep roots in religion. It's the same thing with apartheid, how it came to South Africa. Any colonization it came with Christian values first, and then they brainwashed people and told people, look, this is where you're going. So if we need to dismantle the causes and go deep in, it's a question of, can we find a human first before we find gender? I'll stop there for now.
Wow. We are only 40 minutes into our show. You're still with Bayways. We're talking patriarchy, we're talking toxic masculinity, we're talking misogyny and everything nice about feminism. Douglas said quite a lot of things. I agree with like most of his things, because if there's anything I have against, well, God will forgive me, but there's a lot of things I have against him. But the fact that he let a woman get lost along his teachings just does not sit right with me. There's a lot of women power that was lost in Christianity that we are not told about. Like we told about a few women. We know of Solomon, of how he was a powerful man because he had many wives and bumakwapeni, but dare happiness have 7 husbands and 10 makwapenis, you see the world will stand on its legs. So those are just some of the effects of patriarchy. I also agree with Ndogozo when he says we have to Ndogozo, first of all, a round of applause to you for being this brave to attack God, because now you gave me, matanyana to talk to God. Where is the woman? Where exactly did the women go after they've become one? Happiness, you have something to say?
Yes, I do have something to say. If you're gonna attack my God, I'm subject to step in. I, for one, stand for the gospel and I'll defend it. One thing that is killing Christianity is people's interpretation of Bible. People interpret the Bible a certain way, they take it out there, and people start believing in that. So if we can have more people read the Bible, meditate on it, your own revelation. There are a lot of things that I have noted as you were speaking, as Ntogozo was speaking. You said you feel like a lot of women were oppressed in the Bible, right?
They got lost along the way. They were forgotten. It was as if, here's a woman, and then you just leave the woman listed there, and you move with the men, and then the men, and then the men. We eventually forgot the woman. We forgot the woman. We only know of a few women in the Bible who were actually successful, who were seen, who were heard, stuff like that. But most of the Bible, I feel like, you understand?
That also goes back to interpretation. There are a lot of great women, just that they are not embraced as much, because a lot of people, Baba Raram baby, right? It's me. Yeah. A lot of pastors, so obviously they'll talk about what favors them. I'm not attacking any pastors, but it's just that. But if you go deep into the Bible, you will find a lot of great women. Ruth, there are a lot of great women, just that their stories are not embraced as much as Teta Batwaban. And Kekule Kubulediwa Kabo, Solomon having a lot of wives, this man doing that. Look, just because it was allowed, it does not mean it was right. And that behavior was also condoned. Because if you go back to that, or okay, we saw King Solomon Anale Basadi Babanchi or Tafita killing somebody to sleep with somebody's wife, and you think that is right. Jezebel. Remember that whole prostitute? Yes, if you know the story. Jesus defended the lady, but it doesn't mean what she did was actually right. Uncle Shish. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Now,
because it happened and it was allowed, it does not mean it was right. Just that we don't have Bible yet. What happens at Judgment Day? Probably Solomon is gonna be asked about those many women that he had in his life. David, Lena, maybe he's gonna be judged about that whole killing. It doesn't mean because they were great men in the Bible they were pure. No. You understand? They're still going to be judged. Thank you.
Okay. No, don't go.
Sorry. And there was another one. I'm sorry. I noted this one, and this was the closing statement. Can we remove gender before human? I can't remember how he said it, but is it possible? And that's what I noted when Carol was speaking. Or you know what, we should remove the biology of our biology before refitella as what human beings, right? We should remove that. So I'm failing to understand, is that practical? But is that practical? I just need to understand or a practical or we rinse our hormones aside, rinse our anatomy aside, and we say, okay, we are coming in. Our anatomy is the biggest part of us. How can we remove it?
I'm gonna give an example with my profession. In my profession, we use hammers, we use knives, sharp knives, we use heavy machinery, we carry heavy things. When I tell you for a day doesn't go by where we are not asked, why are we not washing the petticoats? Like every day. The moment you talk about hammer, it's like, wow, but if my counterpart takes the hammer and go, it's all fine, it's all just words, it's all just vibes. But we are cocoting the same thing, using the same device, do you understand? But I get told because I'm a woman, I get told, no, why didn't you choose to go wash the petticoats? But when my counterpart does it, no, he's working. It's all just vibes. But we're doing the same, literally the same thing, using the same devices, doing the same job. Do you understand? So if maybe we took out life would be easy. No one would be told to do you understand? So when we take our biology out of it, it makes us human. I said this last week, before you're a man and before you're a woman, you're a human first. So 100%. It's practical. We are so deep rooted in the patriarchal system that we do not see it as a possible thing. Like Ndogozo mentioned Ndogozo mentioned when a woman is a pastor, she's not called a pastor, but and we're used to that. We even joke. My sister is a church woman. She goes to church. Trust me, because it's just like that. We don't call her as a pastor, but it's just Mamurud. Why don't you call the woman Lena a pastor? Because you've taken the pastor and assigned it to a man. you said also something like whoever, they are not embraced. Why are they not embraced? Because the patriarchal system has put it for no, guys, let's just move. So again, I'm sorry, my baby, but we know of women in the Bible. We heard about them. I love Mary Magdalene so much because no, I'm not gonna give reasons, but I love her so. But women are forgotten. Like happiness, but happiness is all nice, Carol is all nice. But let me tell you about Ndogozo and Tabang. You know, Ndogozo Tabang, blah blah blah. Do you understand? It's just the way things have been designed for us to just carry on with it. Carola, you wanted to say something, you wanted to come in?
I did, but now I have so much more and I don't know where to start. Okay, yeah, the question that Happiness had about whether or not it's practical, yes, and it's dependent on our newer generations. Now that we're aware that there are all of these problems and we know kind of like sort of the root cause of it. So what we can do as a younger generation, if you have children, I don't know if you want children or not, all of us, yeah. If you want children and you have those children, instead of raising them to subscribe to norms and standards that have been set in the past that we don't know what the reason is for, rather instead teach them to be human. Open their eyes to opportunities beyond them being a boy, beyond them being a girl. Give them an opportunity to see young girls and young boys as the same as a human being. And I personally feel like that's one way of changing the narratives that we already have. Because the root cause is obviously from how we're raised and how we absorb all the information that we have. So if we can just rearrange that, if we can just teach our children that they can do whatever they want, regardless of whether they're a boy or girl, and give them the same equal opportunities, then we are most likely going to raise people who are more likely to have the conversations that we're having here in a much lighter way. And we're likely to resolve some of the issues that we have today that you and I are facing with regards to other people who subscribe to those norms.
Happiness, you said you have comments for us.
Yes, there are actually a lot of comments. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, there's Floyd here who said maybe misogyny should be redefined as hate towards women or girls because male and female misogynists are driven by either unjustified hate or contempt. And he also said Ndogozo is raising critical points. So big up Ndogozo there. There's another one. People should initially say that the preachers of the word have focused on the men in the Bible, and they do not talk about how powerful women are or were in the Bible. Yeah, it's basically a lot of comments here. Some I'll just mention them as we are going. Yeah. But we're still watching Brainwaves, so please engage everybody. We have our amazing host here who's leading us, and then our amazing guests, Ndogozo and Carola. Back to you, Madam Host.
Thank you, darling. And thank you guys for engaging. Keep them coming. We'll answer each and every one of you. And yes, Ndogozo is coming for all of us, guys. Ndogozo is coming for each one of us. Well, I get it. I don't know. Okay. Let's go back to toxic masculinity. I'll talk about toxic femininity because we do have that. We do have, I love saying how they suffer from main character syndrome because people, okay. You know, toxic femininity is just you forcing One thing that we do is we use our period as an excuse to get away from a lot of things, But no, guys, no, it's not toxic. We use our toxic femininity to respond to toxic masculinity because men sometimes do not understand I just don't want to have sex, so I come up with I'm on my period so that you cannot have sex because men just cannot ask. When you say no to a man, you activate their toxic masculinity and you activate their misogynist, the misogynist inside of them. Big words, guys, big words, big words. So my English runs away. But anyways, let's go back to toxic masculinity. How many times in a day do you experience such? Ntokozo, you've raised your hand.
Yep, I'm just going to say this. Whatever makes certain things to be toxic is because of it's not controlled. There is nothing wrong for you to exercise your masculinity, but the moment you do it in the wrong way, it becomes an issue. So let's come back to something. I'm going to speak in the context of men in this instance, because it's one of the things I've realized, one of the things that I'm actually doing with all my mentees who happen to be men, sadly, is the lack of affection that men show at an early stage of their life. It becomes one of the reasons they feel entitled to whatever they don't have and they believe it belongs to them. Second thing that I normally tell people is, no one owns a person. So you cannot say, this is my boyfriend, this is my partner, this is mine. Everyone belongs to the Lord. If you're a Christian, if you believe in higher power, whatever the higher power it is, it belongs to that. So let go of entitlement. That's the first thing that creates this toxic thing because of people feel entitled. 3, when it comes to men, just because of they don't know how to identify the feeling they're feeling, what comes to them is because they cannot comprehend the feeling, they become very defensive. So in that instant, that boils down to the fact that just because they cannot get what they actually want at that present moment, it becomes an issue. And in this instance, such things, you see them very likely each and every day. Each and every day I experience that, whereby someone will say, guys, do you know I'm a man? We all know that. That's the first sign that says to a person, red flag. This is the moment you're trying to identify yourself and put your position first to say, I am a man, or I'm the one who proposed you, or I'm the one. Let go of entitlement. Life is about partnership and relationships, building, not breaking. So the moment a man doesn't understand their feelings, their emotions, they cannot express them, the only thing that we are taught is to become defensive. I was saying, making an example to someone, that as a boy child, when I had a fling at my age in the 90s, I would beat up a girl to show that I'm interested to a girl. Because I was told that when you do that, you're showing affection. So we have to actually make people unlearn the idea of men should talk, men should cry, men should see therapists, because of men should be able to voice out how they're feeling. And the moment the men cannot actually do that, it becomes very toxic. But you also find men who are well aware of their own situation and aware of their feelings, but they're driven by situation. You find a mature, humble man, just because of his Zulu, he has to tell a woman, Yimi not. There is nothing wrong with him. Just because of he feels the need of fitting in, he has to identify with the tribe and what the tribe actually does. And there was a time I made an example to someone is, look, in South Africa is hoo-ha for you to have more than one wife and everything. If you go to Swaziland, because the society allows polygamy, if you only have one wife, they're asking you what's wrong with you. So sometimes a situation can drive you to become toxic if you don't know what you want in life and what is ideal and best for you at that present moment. So is there an on and off switch? Yes, there is. It's all about deciding how you exercise the masculinity. And if you don't have underlying issues that pushes you to be toxic, then you do it in the right way. I'll stop there.
Very insightful. Happiness, you have something to say, to add?
About toxic masculinity, there's just a lot, because that's just our life right now. I mean, look at the stats. Rape stats are shooting up, gender-based violence shooting up. So that's just says a lot, man, about where we are as a country or a continent, because this radio station is talking about the continent, not just South Africa. It does say a lot. Mara, the other thing is, I feel like women play a very huge role, because we condone the behavior by accepting those compliments, but you're not like other women. I mean, you drive like a man, and you're there blushing like, yeah. But honestly, the more you blush, it's the more these people get comfortable. You find words like what's this? Words like what, man up, as a way or you need to be strong. So and then if you only weak, but if in the was only weak, no, but when I want to act as if we are not strong, you know. So such things we encourage them by accepting those compliments, and continuing to saying something right, man up, you need to man up, you need to have the peace for it, you know. Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that we're having, the fact that we are condoning it. And then after Carola has responded, I'll be bringing in comments from Facebook.
All right, Carola?
Okay, so for me, when it comes to toxic masculinity, the fact that we have feminine energy and male energy is already a problem on its own. You know, Ntokozo was talking about, well, we shouldn't label. Well, this is where I draw the line with the labels. You know, it shouldn't. So for me, I do agree with Ntokozo. Toxic masculinity comes with entitlement to women, and it comes with a lack of emotional awareness, mostly. And that lack does stem from the fact that they were never allowed to express themselves emotionally. And so they are never really aware of what it is that they feel on a day-to-day basis. So, like, for instance, I read through an article. It was talking about why and how men rape. And they conducted the study, and they had a sample of men who were convicted of rape, or who had raped someone through coercion, or, you know, unintentionally raping someone and stuff like that. And so part of the reasons that stuck with me were, one of the reasons was, I raped her because she said no. I raped her to teach her a lesson. And then there was one, I raped her because I can. And those for me are very toxic. And I do agree with Happiness when she says that we do condone it. You know, there's a lot of pick me energy in a lot of women, and we kind of also facilitate the sociopathy of toxic masculinity. Like, we live in a world that has accepted toxic masculinity, and it facilitates it, and it kind of helps it to evolve even more and more. And it also kind of creates a sense of cognitive dissonance in people, because we grow up believing that toxic energy is correct, and then if it's expressed in a negative way, and then now it creates a sense of dissonance, and then people just revert back to the belief systems that they know. So for me, honestly, toxic energy is the fact that we do have male energy and feminine energy. It should just be energy. Yeah, that's it.
Right. Before we get to the comments, I just want to say there's something I have against one of my high school teachers. I'll never forgive her for this. when you know, girls usually start menstruating when they are 13, 14, you know. So in grade 8, we were in a class just right, noise, dancing and all that. And then one female teacher walked in. She had a pad, a menstrual pad, a sanitary pad, and she said, the boys must go out because we want to talk about biscuits. That's where it clicked to me. Oh no, we're doing things wrong. We're doing things wrong. And I thought maybe it was gonna change, but we talked about biscuits without the boys being with us. And I think that's where the entitlement starts, because they don't really know exactly what's happening in our lives, or they don't really have, and they're locked out of women experiences. Like, why would you take women out because you want to talk about biscuits? Why are they even called biscuits? So, ma'am, Shem, if you're watching this, I'll never forgive you for this. Okay, Carol, before we get to you, let's address the comments. Happiness.
Yes, guys, we are still watching Bay Waves. We are talking about patriarchy, misogyny, and toxic masculinity. So in the comments, we have a lot of shout outs. So yeah, I'll just shout out to a few people that commented. Shout out to Gracious, Onika, Mahlaule, Ranzu, and everybody else that is watching, everybody else that is commenting. I just mentioned a few. And back to the comments. So yes, shout out to you, Floyd, as well. We see you. There's a comment from he says, oh, this is the other one. Without women in our lives, the world wouldn't be the same. Jesus was brought into the world by a strong woman, and even at the beginning of humanity, God put a woman on earth to accompany man. There are many Bible verses about women that show their strength time and time again during hardship, life's most fearful moments, and in happy times too. God made women in his image for a special reason, and the word of the Lord reminds us of this fact each and every day through specific verses and stories passed down of powerful women such as Mary, Rachel, Rebecca, Ruth, and many more. These leaders, mothers, and faithful forces were spiritual guides during their lifetimes and are still inspirations for us women today. Look towards these scriptures, verses, and important figures next time you want to remind yourself of how much a woman can accomplish, especially with the power of her faith behind her. And there's also a comment by TC Mabunda. Thank you, Floyd, for that one. Comment by TC. He says, Christianity and other religions alike are the source of most, if not all, there's a big word in here, chauvinism. If there's anybody that knows what this word means, please help me out. It's CHAUVINISM. Yeah, if not all of the chauvinism and toxic masculinity around us. There are plenty of verses which teaches us about how women should be, but a very few about how men should. On feminism, it is disturbing or very common that most women become feminists after having a bad run-in with men. And too often people think that feminism is about women fighting against males, while the actual fact about feminism is that it is against the system, not men. Patriarchy is deeply rooted in the religion said above. In Islam, for instance, those who defend Islam's with their lives are promised 70 virgins after their death. Well, I'll continue with the comments later. Let's just get back to you, Madam Host.
Thank you very much for those comments. Thank you. I don't know if you guys picked any comment that you want to address specifically to Ntokozo.
Well, before you call out Ntokozo, Mr. TC's comment was not complete here. So it continues. Erim, my suggestion is to regulate religions. Okay, let me just read it as it is. My suggestion is regulate religions if needs be. Edit these books, which are paraded as having universal truth and wisdom, while it does nothing or little to oppress women. And lastly, every child should start using their mother's surname because matriarchy is absolute, but patriarchy is uncertain.
Wow.
And Floyd is saying, Monaked, you are raising an important aspect in society, the neglected boy child from that story about your teacher. And that's just it from the comment section. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for your comments, guys. It's through with their ways. We are attacking men, we are attacking women. So, Ntokozo, you wanted to say something?
No, I'll give it to Carola. Her hand was up first. I'll touch on chauvinistic behavior, as it was mentioned as one of the comments. But for now, let's give it to Carola so that you can dive in.
Miss Carola?
Honestly, I just wanted to the long comment. I just wanted to comment on that as I really yes, that was well thought out. I like it, you know. That person really mentioned a lot, and for me, it also just brought up the fact that for me, my feminism also stemmed from Christianity. I am so sorry, Happiness, but yes, I grew up in a very Christian-bound family, and you know, most of the questions that I had were directed at the Bible. And when we're talking about the Bible, I personally don't know much about the Bible, but I have done a wee bit of research, and I have found that to some extent, the story of Lilith is also removed. I don't know, maybe if you can elaborate on Lilith's story there, whether it's part of the Bible that we have here today in this modern day life, etc. And on the comment of editing out the book is constantly edited, if I'm not wrong, by the Catholic Church, right? I think we just need more Arabic editors so that they can translate accurately and not white people editing. And we need more women involved, I guess, maybe in the editing of the book, just to put women's stories first. Because you say there are strong women in there, and you put them there. And I would also like to say, maybe let's not romanticize women struggling, because I heard there was a comment that said, you know, women's struggles are inhabitant. But there's a lot of, especially with Black women, there's a lot of romanticizing of the struggle. And I think that's a conversation for misogyny, misogynoir. But yeah, that's basically it.
I really love what you said, that we romanticize women struggling. Like I always tell people that now I want a nice story. I got this without struggling. Like I want a nice story. I don't want my story to be attached to some trauma. I don't want to I struggled, guys. I just want to get to a stage and say, no, I got that, and it was still bad for me for feed, like no trauma attached to it. Like we've made, if you don't have a trauma story to your story, it gets automatically invalidated, because we've made Black women to be this war warriors, like we have to struggle.
Yeah.
It's a constant struggle. You struggle when you wake up, you struggle until you go to sleep. It's sad, like it said, I want better for Black women. I want women to be, do you know how this is my favorite one? It's my favorite because I hate it, not because I like it. Recently, Faith and Gates was bought a very luxury car. Hey, didn't the Black men come to fight? And then they were like, it's always with this kind of stories where where Black women are living in luxury, provided by their partners. There's always the white woman chat inside of it. Like, if now I was journering a white woman, I wouldn't have to do this. If you were journering a white woman, you wouldn't have to provide, you didn't have to send emails, you didn't have to. It's always like before a Black woman appeal in softish, in a soft life. There has to be some bogoto thing that she had to go through, guys. Like, let's drop that. Let's drop that. It's really okay for me and Carola and Happiness to go to Dubai with no trauma. Just go to Dubai just for vibes. Like, we are ex, guys. Like, now I always tell people, well, now I'm very soft. Now, when something hurts me, I'm gonna cry right on the spot. I'm not strong. And I don't think there's any Black woman out there who's strong. Winnie Mandela was not strong. No, there's no Black woman who was strong, guys. I don't think Sarafina was strong. I don't think our mothers are strong. Our grandmothers, they're not strong, guys. Like, I want better for women. And I think this is where the misogyny chat comes in. But before we get to that, happiness come in.
Yeah, there's still a flow of questions here. But the nice part is right now we are answered by a Pastor Strike Mangani. We have 2 comments. The first one, he quoted a verse from Judges 4, verse 4 to 5. Good News Translation.
Okay.
It says, now Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophet, and she was serving as a judge for the Israelites at that time. She would sit under a certain palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the people of Israel will go there for her decisions. And then the second comment, he says, in fact, before God, we are equal, because according to God, we are spirits before we are male or female. And in fact, God has empowered a woman so much that she came with so much power to even help a man. And if man be this great person, how can he be given a weak woman to help him? There's another one. Well, there's a lot. He said, check on the scripture from the beginning. He made them male and female, and he blessed them. The last one, he's saying, here is a woman who was a judge back in the Bible days where there were male judges. I can't see the scripture. Kenneth, please send through the rest of the comments, because I think there's a comment coming after this one. And that's it from the floor.
I love the one where they say, I think it's the last one. What's the last one?
The last comment that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Which one? Yeah, here is a woman. Here is a woman.
Check on the script. Being a judge.
Oh, okay. Now Deborah, the wife of Lapidoth, was a prophet, and she was serving as a judge for the Israelites at that time. She would sit under a certain palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the people of Israel would go there for her decisions.
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I ditched the Bible. I ditched part of the Bible a very long time ago. So it's my first time hearing about this. I love that a pastor brought this up. I also just want to tell pastors, because as much as I ditched the Bible, I love going to church. So I don't know how that works. But if pastors moved away from talking about women on Women's Day only, like, guys, you can go to church for 5 months and you won't hear a verse about a woman, unless they're addressing women's struggles, unless they're celebrating women, and that's like once in a year. So maybe if pastors tried to bring Basadi into light on just their day-to-day preaching, it would be much better. It would actually try to dismantle the whole patriarchy thing. We still have Dogozo, we still have Carola. Who wanted to come in now? Who wanted to talk?
I just wanted to say, like, as Happiness was reading through the comments, I was sitting here thinking, like, who preaches these? You know, because I've never personally went to church and heard them. I've never heard a pastor sit down and tell us about all of these brave women who did all these things, the prophets, and we need to hear them. If you want to convince us that this Bible does favor women and it does help women, make us see it outside of National Women's Day, 9 August. You know, like, bring them to us.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
like, if we talked more about, like, I agree with Dogozo on 100% when he says Christianity, like, is really the root of the, because you never, guys, honestly, I don't know, Happiness, when we go to church, unless we celebrate Abasad or a women's conference, and like, we have to dismantle women conferences because men are not there to talk about, you know, that thing when we talk about the biscuit. So maybe if we had conferences where we teach these men about this wonderful women of faith, and life would be so much better. Maybe us or the society and women are the reason why the men are behaving the way they are behaving, because we exclude them from a lot of things. One of my favorite toxic masculinity things is when a boy child wants to wear a pink something and they get told, oh no, that's for girls. Anyways, we're gonna talk about misogyny now. How guys, like, misogyny is one of young stress because it's 100% the reason why the gender-based violence, I'm not gonna say gender-based violence, it's 100% the reason why women and children abuse is this high. Or am I lying? Is there any other underlying reason other than misogyny?
Yeah, no, we understand the femicide. Yeah, we get it.
We shouldn't also take away mental illnesses. I believe that's one thing that within the African context, we generally overlook. If people do show signs that, okay, fine, those as a mental illness signs, but because of the Africans, they'll tell you that, look, you're bewitched, you need to, there should be a traditional event, your ancestors don't recognize you. You go throughout the process, but it doesn't take away that the personality trait or how you actually behave shows signs of mental illness. It starts there. 2, one of the reasons that we find ourselves experiencing such is because people are living their dreams, not the reality. You made an example about Faith Ngezi getting this car and all that. There is a young child, 13, 14, who thinks subjecting herself to a man who has money might lend me that. Irrespective of the abuse, irrespective of what will happen to me, this is what I'm going to go through. So we also have to look at that people should live their lives, not a dream life, not the Instagram life or a LinkedIn life or a social media life, because of that's the first thing we go wrong. Because of there was a time I had a conversation with one of my mentees, and it was like, I was tempted to just beat up my girlfriend. I said, why didn't you do it? It's like, besides our sessions, she always says, other girls do this, other girls receive that, other girls receive that. Why can't I? The level of a comparison we find in the society is quite detrimental, to a point whereby it leads men hating women, because of when they see women, they see a trading commodity, to say, if I have money, it's the same thing. Someone once said that patriarchy without money is not patriarchy, it's just toxic masculinity. And if you have money, then it becomes patriarchy because of you have access to resources and you can tell people what to do and not to do. So when it comes to the idea of this is we find men demeaning women because of they see them as commodities, not as human beings. Two, we need to clarify and distinguish between women who know what they want in life and where they want to go as well. Because of the moment a woman doesn't know where they want to be in life, it becomes very difficult for you to find a person, so to make this example, to lead you or be there with you or be your partner because of you living other people's lives. I have mentioned the mental illness as an issue. My other unsettling thing that we find that leads to this is lies. We may take it as a lie, as we as people, we lie to each other because of we believe in motivational quotes like fake it until you make it. All those idea of all those teachings that doesn't have sustenance in our day-to-day living that pushes people to do that because of if I will raise a voice on you, that is abuse. You have to leave. But the moment you stay, it shows signs that there's something wrong. So everyone will hate you because you're a human being, but the hate that is dedicated to women, as much as you guys said earlier on, women also are contributing factors. But this goes back to the fact that there's an inferior man behind who suffers from mental illness that need to be attended on or trying to conform to a society. I'm one person who was once subjected to that and was quite difficult. I won't say, but I'll make an example. My second university dated a Xhosa woman. It was nice and cool until one day she says to me, "Do you really love me?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And she was like, "Why don't you beat me up?" Like, what do you mean? She says, "No, I'm from Eastern Cape. The only way a man proves that they love me, they must show that they're jealous by beating me." And when I asked her, "Where'd you get that?" And she said, "This is what happens in my community back at home." So we have to be careful of how much does the community contribute to such behaviors? Because of we now have traumatized women who believe that if a man doesn't raise a voice or if a man doesn't do something, they love you less. There are people who tell you that I'm full of violence. So literally what you are doing is you go and seek for violence. And when you go and get it, it becomes like there's something wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with you being alone, but it's difficult for you to find yourself in a society that doesn't actually understand what's happening. I hate to say this, but I have to say it, is we are no more a community that raises each other. When I was growing up, I was guaranteed that the man next door is my father, the mother by the corner is my mother as well, and I'll dress them with the same respect and all that. But because of technology now, we live in silos that we are not a community as Black people. And the most painful part is us middle-class Black people feed into this because of the moment I get a better job, I leave that small community that is quite poor. I go stay in a suburb where people don't care about me. I build a huge wall and I say that is success according to me. Not checking back that you're part of a community that raised you. What did you do to give back to that community as well? And your influence and the change in behavior becomes a thing because of 80% of the things that we know in life is tacit knowledge. It's not explicit knowledge. It's people looking at you, observing and taking it in and processing it as the true reflection of the learning. So people are not always not what you say, but it's what you teach. You get my point? It doesn't mean when your teacher came and stood in front and said you're talking about the biscuit, the content was correct, but how you said it, it tarnished the way you see it today. It changed the perspective of how you see it today. So that's the thing about us as people is we don't have good example of role model men that can change the community because of they're afraid of conforming to the society where they come from because of they think and they were subjected to how the norms and standards of that community behaves like that. I'll keep it there. I'll give it to Carola now.
Hi. So I wanted to comment firstly on the community aspect of it all. Like I said, I'm a Black feminist, so I am definitely pro-Blackness. And in psychology, there's this theory on personality, African perspective, which in the depth of it talks about self-actualization comes from the community that we as Black people have for each other. So concepts such as self-actualization, self-efficiency, and self-efficacy for Black people is bound to like existing as a community because we are a community-based people more than anything. And if there's anything that we take away from this, I would like for us to maybe remove whiteness from the conversations that we have as Black people. Because when we talk about misogyny, misogyny is a concept that comes from whiteness, obviously. And I would like for us to start talking as Black people, we should focus more on misogynoir, which specifically talks about someone who has been oppressing someone else. For us, it's not a white man on top oppressing this white woman. It's a Black man who has also gone through some form of oppression in their life, some form of struggle, and then they also bring it back to this Black woman who's not only now being oppressed by them, but also by the system when they go outside into the world and they meet with other people out there. So for me, I would really love for us to take away whiteness, especially when we talk about these concepts, because we need to start including intersections of race and class and all of that, and being a woman. We need to start building our arguments based on these things because they play such a huge role in how we get to understand and how we get to sort of like resolve the issues that we have. And then another part, you spoke about mental illness. I don't think I quite understood what you were saying. Maybe you can explain afterwards. But for me, I don't like for us as a people to have a crutch. I think a lot of us have crutches that we hold on to. An example I would give is if someone cheats and they're like, well, the devil got to me. That's a crutch, right? It's not necessarily, it doesn't exist. You chose to do it. And for some people, it isn't really mental illness. You know, it's just that they have fostered traits within themselves, characteristics that they identify as a man or something, and then they've absorbed them and they've chosen to live with them. I'm not saying that people can't have mental illness. I'm saying that we should never use mental illness as a crutch because mental illness is such a real thing. And when we start to use it in our day-to-day lives as something that's, bare, we kind of take away the importance that it holds. I don't know if I'm making sense, but yeah, for me, when I talk about misogyny, I like to include intersections of the fact that the Black man who is oppressing this Black woman also comes from oppression, and this woman who's experiencing this oppression also has to go out into the world and experience more oppression. So I would like for us to remove whiteness from our conversations. So yeah.
You guys, our guests have said quite a lot. Happiness has comments from our audience. Happiness, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tahadzo. Yes, guys, you are still tuned in. This is Bay Waves on Bold Moves Radio, a platform for African youth to build a better Africa for themselves. So 30 minutes to closing, and we are getting engagements here. So before I go to the comment section, I just want to say we are led or hosted by our wonderful host, Madam Host Tahadzo. And we have our special guest. The lady there is Carola, who holds a BSc honors degree in psychology. She's currently volunteering at an old age home, doing some counseling there. And this handsome gentleman here is Ntogozo, the founder of Jabila Empire. He holds a Bachelor's of Commerce in Management Accounting from Northwest University. He works as a management consultant specializing in change management, people and culture, and strategic management, amongst other things. And amongst other things, he is a self-taught photographer, graphic designer, web and application developer, and information system analyst. Ntogozo, how do you do this? But before you can answer me, let's go to the comment section. There's a comment airing, wow, Bay Waves, you guys are really making waves, addressing issues that Africa turned a blind eye of generations. Every big thing we see today was once an idea. You guys are really raising a flag of hope for an African child. And then we have Mahlodi here saying, while religion plays a role in patriarchy, I think it is important to mention culture and traditions in the same breath. And we have Maina here. She says, true, we need to hear about us throughout so as to maintain what the Bible says. We get verses that addresses women matters on August, and pastors should accelerate the teachings about women's verses. That's all from the floor. Thank you, Madam Host.
Wow. Thank you for reading those comments for us. And thank you, Mahlodi. I think that is very important. It's a very important point that you raised, that we should talk as we put the blame on Christianity, should also bring into play the tradition and culture. Because it really plays a huge role in all of this. Like what Mr. Ntogozo said about the crosser girlfriend saying, why are you not beating me up? Because she's used to that. In her culture, their tradition is, if a guy really loves you, they have to beat you up. And it's also something that I've seen in my own community, that if a guy really loves you, they have to smack down you quite a few times, then you'll be like, oh yeah, banrata. But guys, it's not like that. If a guy loves you, they'll go out with you, get ice cream with you. Like, it's as Ntogozo has said, social media has brought a lot of problems upon us. It has brought a lot of dreams. I'm gonna admit that I suffer from dreams, because I even deleted Instagram because like it's serious. I saw with me that this is serious. I deleted Instagram because I saw other 21-year-olds traveling the world doing these extravagant things, and now I'm just, oh my gosh, guys, I'm just me. I go out, I get the go slows, I come back, and that should be my life. And it ends there, and I go to school, and then I come back, I'm asleep. But then it takes a lot to come back to yourself and say, this is where you are at, this is your journey, this is your life. So as much as we love our social media, let's try and come back into us as much as we can, so that we do not get carried away by what we see that's out there. I know quite. I had a few friends who would pressure their boyfriends to get this for them because they saw someone on Instagram getting that thing from them. It's a lot. It's what we've taught ourselves. So I hope as we are having this conversation, we're going to be parents that. No, before we even get to, I hope we're going to be young adults that are healed, that have come back into themselves, that understand what they want for themselves. Because I feel, I said this last week, that I feel like we're carrying a lot of trauma from who raised us and who raised those people who are raising us. And I think the buck should stop with us. Like, we should put an end to, or you know what, guys, let's stop doing this. Another thing I would love to bring back up on the platform is Mr. Ntogozo explained that sometimes men suffer from mental illnesses, and therefore they do this, they do that. But I think what men don't really suffer from mental illness. Although there are those who suffer from mental illness, I think men just really need therapy. I said this last week that men do not go to therapy, men do not talk. So they have this, I would call it unresolved trauma. Because they were brought up, we said this in our first episode, that men grow up in fatherless households. So they grow up with that. The mother is hurt. The mother transfers the trauma to that man. That man grows up with that trauma and gives birth to a child and transfers that trauma. And then the trauma is just transferred and transferred and transferred and transferred until the woman decides, oh, you know what, let me just go to therapy. And when you actually sit with them, I think Miss Carola can attest to this, that when you really talk to these men, when you therapize them, you actually end up finding a child inside of them who went through the most. Like, you find that you're not dealing with a 40-year-old, but you're dealing with a 5-year-old who was hurt by their mom or grandmother 10, 15 years ago. So men really need to get into therapy. Men really need to remove their madness and be human and be spirit and attend therapy. Talk about this thing. Another thing that I hate about men is that even if we do encourage them to get to talk, never teach a debating when they sit down and talk. They tell Ndogozo, I'm going through this. Ndogozo to his friends, I'm going. So they fail to create safe spaces for themselves. If men start creating safe spaces for themselves, start holding space for themselves, then maybe we will be able to dissolve most of the problems that we have in our society. I don't know who raised their hand first between Dogozo and Happiness, but whoever takes the mic first can talk. Oh.
I think he should just give it to me because he'll be attacked. No, it's just
Okay.
a comment from down here. It's the last comment. I think we should close off the comments at 20:45. So this one is from Kulumba. He says that I believe the world without women would have men with no proper direction. Wow. Yes, that's the only comment I have.
I think I agree with that, because it's always women who have a manual on how to behave, on how to act, on what to do. And there's never really a manual on how men should act. You know, but anyways, Kutokozo, the mic is yours.
Yeah, I'm just going to say something that most people might not like me after this, but let's get this right. Biblically so, the Bible says, women submit. That's what most people do. But they don't read the before verse says men love first. So if you are a true Christian, as a man, you've been bestowed with a lot of affection that you need to give to a woman so that the woman can be able to actually submit. So there is no inclining that a man cannot love, a man cannot share their emotions, provided they believe that they're Christians. And if you further on, let's go back and say we're made in his image and God is love according to 1 John. So if we as men are made in the image of God, and 2, it's our responsibility to love women. That is a sign as a man, you are the key person to show affection and love to anything and everyone. So the moment as a man you lack that, you're less of a man. And the moment you are less of a man, you're bound to adapt certain behaviors and certain traits that are opposite of what love is and associate them with love. And that becomes very toxic. So what I normally say to all my friends, male, whatever, female, whatever, I have even taught my nephews to tell each other that they love each other. Show affection. The most difficult thing and the most painful thing is people are now living an automated life, whereby when someone greets you, you have an automatic response. And I have changed my greeting 7 years ago to say to ask people, hi. I don't say, how are you? I ask you, how are you feeling? And the moment I ask you, how are you feeling? It tells you how different it is. And when someone asks me, how am I? I'm going to say I'm just handsome or I look ugly today, because you're asking about my appearance. But the moment you ask a person about how they're feeling, it makes that person to listen to you with an empathetic ear instead of a sympathetic ear, because of a sympathetic ear will tell you, okay, it happens, it's okay, it's fine. They'll try to have a relative voice. But the moment I can personally say, look, I dearly love Corolla because of what she does to me, or this is how I feel about her. So it is a responsibility of a man. Like, for example, I normally say my dad was not around to teach me how to propose. So I still lack that. That's why I'm still single. But jokes aside, what's most important is the certain teachings which needs to be there and to be taught to most men. And one of the key ones is they are supposed to show affection at all cost to make a woman feel safe. I'll keep quiet from there.
Wow. I've also changed the way I greet people. I just, if I'm not really feeling like it, it's just timelang and I keep it moving. Cause when we say like it's like someone would really stop you and tell you, I had this kind of problem. I did this. So if I'm not in the right mental capacity to really take on people's emotions, I just hi, then keep it moving. And then when I ask, how are you actually doing? Then that's when they start relating. Oh no, I'm having this kind of problem. And then I respond accordingly. Well, our time is almost up, so we'll just get your closing statement. It can be 5 minutes long. It's fine. Kerala, what would you say in closing the session?
Okay, so for me, what I would say in closing is, well, again, first of all, we can have all of these conversations until, Jesus comes back. But I feel like we also just need to start focusing on what we assume would work or would function as kind of resolutions for the problems that we have, programs that Ndogoza has, and then there's this other program, Raising a Boy Child. It's also a program where they take young men and young women and they teach them how to be people before they're young men and women. And I would also encourage you and I to talk to the people that are around us, to talk to our nephews and nieces, young as they are, to start considering other people as human and start seeing women as human too. So for us to finally have sort of like a conclusion to this is to really start recognizing what we can do as forms of solution. I'm not taking away from the importance of the conversation because there are people who still don't know, but it's also very important to start looking at the solutions that we can bring. I also wanted to comment on, there's a comment that was said in the comment section about without women, men wouldn't have direction. Although that sounds really nice, that comment isn't actually as nice as we would like it to be, because it implies that in order for a man to function as a person, they would need a woman. And that's not what we're trying to teach here. We're trying to teach a man to function on their own, a woman to function on their own, to express themselves on their own, to self-actualize on their own, to really live out who they are without depending on someone else. So more than anything, we really need to start looking at the language that we use, obviously. Although it sounds nice, some of it, most of it, if we really look into it, it doesn't sound as good. And then another thing, introspection, self-introspect, really go to therapy. If you don't know how to introspect, ask someone, Google it. I'm also here to help. I'm really good at it. Yeah, so I really encourage everyone to self-introspect so that they kind of find the problems or where they're lacking as people and how they can improve themselves as people. And I guess the last thing I would say is, again, when we do have these conversations, I urge every single one of us to remove whiteness from the conversation. it's absolutely important that when we talk about these, we focus on Black people, the Black experience, and how we experience these things amongst each other, and how they also translated into the greater context of South Africa. I don't know, yeah. So that's basically all that I would like to say. And feminism is not a scam. It works.
Happiness. Happiness come in. Okay, while waiting for happiness, Ntokozo, you can close.
He's here now.
I'm still fixing my camera. You can talk.
Okay, I can go. One of the things that I normally say is it's nice to talk, but I believe that it's also high time for us to actually start doing. And when I started my program 4 years ago, I allowed a group of 8 boys to come into my life, into my private space, hoping that will pay off. And as we speak now, all 8 of them, they've been paying forward. I don't believe in the principle of paying it back, but it's a case of paying it forward. And currently now I can proudly say that 20 boys that are into the program whereby we teach men how to love and how to show affection. And yes, it's a small number, but for me, it makes a huge difference to a point whereby it's okay for a man to cry. It's okay for a man to actually share their own emotions and feel weak and not feel being judged and go back and become a positive contribution to the greater community. That being said, these topics is not something that we just have to have a conversation about them now. It's a frequent thing that we need to talk about. And for me, it would be nice that if we could, there's 3 different sections or topics that can be dealt separately and into detail so that we could find also the source of the problem. And within the Black community, the source of the problem goes back to the fact that other Black people are still afraid of asking why to their parents. Why should I slaughter a cow? Why should I get married? Why should I do that? And the moment your parents are not giving you the right decision and say, that is how it's supposed to be done, stop doing that, because we find premature men in marriages. We find boys being fathers. We find men over indebted, just trying to live a life that doesn't belong to them. So us as men, we need to ask a lot of whys, especially when it comes to certain practices that needs to be passed over into the next generation through us as men. And thirdly, as Corolla said, is you're first humans before your gender, before your sexuality, before your identity. And it's kind of painful. For example, being also a data analyst, I was running a survey. Out of 3,000 people who have responded, I only have 4 people who chose non-binary in them responding to that. And speaking, they'll say that 3% is not material, but for me, it's a sign that says people chose to say, I don't want to be called a Mr. or a Sir or a Mrs. I'm first human before I conform to the society norms. So prior to you conforming to other things, as people, we need to know that you have to make a decision to associate yourself with whatever society norms are there, and you should also hold yourself accountable. And this is a call for us to all guys. Guys, we need to call each other out. If you're wrong, you're wrong. There isn't no way whereby if you're doing something wrong, I won't tell you that you're doing something wrong as a man. Women are not a commodity. Women are not a playground. They're human beings. They have breath. They need air as much as you need it. So we have to treat them as they are. And my case is yes, it's important to remember labels and how we label people. But before that as well, let's shy away from labeling people into societies that they belong to without giving them an alternative for them to move out of that toxic environment. and show them the way. So we cannot just become typical pastors and say going to hell without letting people to know God and know what's the importance of having God in their life. Because if we're going to say, if you say you're going to hell, people will join Christianity or whatever denomination you have just because they're afraid of hell. But if you can show people why they should stop being toxic, why should they go to therapy, and why they should do that. So I think the problem about us, we just want to talk. We don't want to mentor people. We are event-orientated. We are not program-orientated. And if there's people, we can focus on being program-orientated and taking men, taking women throughout the journey. We don't say you're just a feminist because of there is this GBV movement happening. That day-to-day issues we face with women at offices, at workplace, within the context of other women being homeless, how do we actually treat those women? We don't just feed them money, give them coin, but we need to also empower them to a certain degree. So I am honored to be here. I appreciate that. Over to you, Happiness.
Okay, sorry. I need to come back. No, this was a setup. I shouldn't have allowed Ndogozo to go before me because now he took all my pointers, but it's okay, it's fine. Well, I have a few pointers that I've noted down. Well, the first one being, let's all read our Bible. Let's not just wait to go hear about these verses or scriptures, go reading. Bibles are they're not that expensive. Yes, we have expensive Bibles, but it'll be better if you get your own Bible and just try to understand it on your own. That's how people get revelations. And then the second thing, I would like to encourage women to take up these leading positions. I mean, if we have a female voice there, I'm sure Ruth, Esther, and those great women in the Bible. There's also an annual event that Pastor Joylene Mangani used to host. I think about great women in the Bible. Rise up something. Pastor Strike will just help me with the name of the thingy, the program or the event that is hosted annually that educates us about these great women in the Bible. The third one that Ndogozo already touched on, creating our own traditions. I mean, if we date it back, these traditions were created by people. So most century, let's also create our traditions. Let's stop adopting the traditions. Why? I mean, why do I have to slaughter this cow so that I can speak to somebody that is dead? Let's try to do things that make sense to us, that we feel they will help us, because after all, we want to build a better Africa for ourselves. The other one, there should be more programs to teach boy children, but I discovered about boy children, even girls, they should be taught, and then they should be exposed to different toys, because we grew up in an environment where we were trained to nurture. They give us a doll, we need to learn how to combat, we need to feed it and all of those things, but I mean, who knows, I want to be what do they call, a truck driver when I grow up, So we should start with those little things that may not seem like it's a big deal, but it's actually a big deal. The other one, as women, we should empower ourselves from within before we can try to listen to the community or the society, because if you're not empowered or in yourself, there's no way somebody else will empower you. So it starts from within before you can take it out there. And the last one, this is what I always say after every show, we need a political party. We need a political party, yabaswa. So if umuswa, we don't want to be led by these old people who are just gonna lead us astray. We need a political party, I mean, after 21 years of liberation, we still don't have a female president in South Africa. But That's a topic for another day, although it was relevant for this one, but we need that. We need to see more women standing up, filling up the parliament and all that. So yes, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because is a mentor, right? You mentor boys. Can you just share how people can join that?
They can visit my website and just drop me an email. The reason why I choose specific people for a reason, but if there are men who are willing to join, on my website, my email address is there, and then they can just drop me an email, and then I make them go through specific assessments before time because of how can I say this? My mentorship program, it's a case of taking one person from one space to another space, and where I lack skills, I outsource. For example, I have a group of friends who are counselors that deal with counseling of those guys and all that, because I'm not a professional counselor and all the case may be. When it comes to other skill sets that they have to learn. So the best place, it's my website. Just my surname.co.za. Just look at contact us. You'll find my email there. They can send me an email and then we'll take it from there. I never reject people because other people think that they need a mentorship program only if they only need a life coach in their life. So I'm able to deduce based on how you respond to the questionnaire, where you are supposed to be at, and then with the network I have, resources, money is not an issue. I can find a person who can assist anywhere.
Thank you very much. Happiness, I'm giving you 1 minute.
No, Pastor Strike did help me with the name of the program is Abigail Arise, that is led by a female pastor, a senior pastor, Pastor Joylene Mangani. So it is, you can find her on the same page. I think she also hosts her sermons on this page. That's all.
While you're still there, in the comment section, just drop Dogozo's email contact thingies. And for me, I have a emotional support group for girls. It's called the Local Strip Club, literally the Strip Club. So you can find me on my Facebook, on Twitter, Team Munagedi, and Instagram is Team Munagedi. This was nice. Thank you, Ms. Carola, for joining us once again. Thank you, Dogozo. Thank you, Happiness, and thank you to our beautiful audience. We are back next Tuesday with another hot topic, with another educational topic, with another educated people, like we Miss Carol, who just have an honors degree. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Dogozo, for gracing us with your presence. Thank you, Carola. Let's meet again next week, 7 p.m. Old Moves Radio on YouTube and Pastor Strike Mangagi on Facebook page. From me, it's a good night. Happiness just has to still don't get guy.
But well, I just wanted to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye. That is nice.